Services. Which services presented on your website are most in demand? Well, I don't really have any services actually presented on my website, but I do have a general sense for things that most clients end up uh, you know, getting into. And I would say it's these, right? So by and large, most clients come to me because of probably two things. They have either one of two things. One, they have some sort of announcement that they want to get out. Oh, we have some news, we have some product, we have some funding, we have some big event. They want to get the news out there. So it's around that announcement. Or it's this general complaint that they feel like they should be doing thought leadership. Now, thought leadership is basically many different things, right? It could be, you're on a podcast, you're being interviewed on, broadcast television, you're doing a question and answer interview on a blog, you're, doing a social media live stream. I mean, there's a million things. The main thing is just like that your C is more personal. An announcement is more like company focused. It's like, oh, the company announces something. Thought leadership is more like the person is the big deal. So thought leadership is more like, oh, my CEO needs to be more out there, and our CMO needs to be more active in the community. That's thought leadership. Announcement is more like, we're announcing this new big product. We want the media to cover it. That's the vast majority of like why people kind of come to seek us out. And then when we pitch them, I would say the vast majority of people who are doing things with us are speaking, like getting people on, like if there's like, let's say 5 or 6 conferences a year that are really big for them, like putting together the submissions to get them a speaking slot on stage without them having to pay anything. Because, sponsorships at conferences can be $40,000-$50,000. So, being able to, be up on the stage with the panel is great for business development, lead generation, things like that. And we'll handle the whole like process end to end, like putting together the speaking submission, figuring out what was kind of done before, monitoring for deadlines, things like that. Case studies is largely dependent on like the client, and I would say maybe 20% of clients have good case studies that they want to publicize. Unfortunately, even though it's really good, because like the media love good case studies, the media love to be able to speak to customers themselves, to hear the stories firsthand about how they leveraged such and such product to do such and such thing, as opposed to like a marketing or PR person telling them. So, but unfortunately, like case studies are hard to come by. Most companies don't do a good job collecting them. They are far and few between good enough to even be publicized. So this is more rare. Media relations is kind of like an overarching service that we do, which is like in general, when you're doing all these other things like announcements, it's good to have a relationship with the media before you do the announcement, right? Like if you're reaching out for the first time about an announcement and you have no contact with that person previously, they don't know who you are, you don't have a good relationship, you've never done anything for them, why are they going to just cover your news unless it's extraordinarily good or interesting? Media relations is the softening of that exterior so that when you go to do the announcement, it's nice and soft and it's able to be penetrated. And I just feel like the media relations component is like, like the smoothing of the edges, like of the rough edges of something. It's like, having a coffee with somebody, just generally building a relationship, but not having any sort of like bias or any sort of like secret agenda. Sometimes it's like people will try to have a coffee, but then they'll be trying to push an announcement. Sometimes it's just like, let's just have a coffee, let's just get to know each other. And that's what media relations is. It's just building relationships in the appropriate place in the appropriate time through many different methods. And even though clients don't come to us and they're like, yeah, we want to do media relations, because most of them don't know that that's actually important. That's actually something we do for everyone, and that's actually really important. So even though they don't know it's important, we do it for a lot of people. Awards, we do this for most clients, if not all. This is, again, another thing that we do for everyone. Even if they're not like trying to hire people and trying to win like best places to work, every client has some sort of like desire, for the most part, to win like a best places to work or a best product of the year, most innovative company, like insert whatever niche it is, like best developer tool, like best construction software, like best agriculture product of the year. Like, you can think of a million different awards they should be winning that helps validate their product, which helps the sales team sell. So these are pretty common that we do for awards for our clients. Data campaigns, a bit more rare. So data campaigns is one of those things where, like, if a client has a ton of data, like they have thousands of customers or even hundreds of customers, but thousands of data points, and then they can like turn that into some sort of report on like the state of the industry or like how things are going. Oftentimes, like, we just had a client do something, even sometimes when they'll go and contact a third party to run a survey in their industry that allows them to put out a report. We'll have situations like that, and then it's like doing a sort of a kind of a data campaign which helps present the company as a kind of a thought leader and putting out interesting things and like saying something new, and the media get a good angle and haven't heard it before, and it's fresh and it's interesting. And so we'll kind of help them do it. I would say that's like 50-50 in terms of the number of clients that we do that for. And the last is writing. We do this for almost all clients. We'll use AI to do a lot of it. Sometimes we'll get our freelance network to do some ghostwriting and bring in somebody who's been a writer for like 20 or 30 years. I would say in terms of the writing that we do in-house, it's pretty frequent. Like almost all clients we do this for. And then for like the actual like, oh, there's a specialized need, let's bring in like an outside expert, that's maybe like 20% of the time we do something like that. So that is our services, even though they're not on the website. Is there any difference in what and how you do things depending on the chosen service or expertise? I mean, like, not generally, no. Like, you could obviously say the differences come down to the client and the industry they're in, but it's not like, oh, this person paid for something and I'm gonna do it differently for them because they're paying for a different service. So no. Unique selling proposition. What key elements do you think should be reflected in the unique selling proposition? What is the main value of your services? So by now you've probably watched a ton of my videos. I think this should starting to be coming out, but the key elements would probably be around, we have expertise, experience, creativity, proactivity, we're lean, hungry, aggressive, and we think differently. Those are the elements that I think go into the sort of main value of the service. And the main value of the service is I mean, forget the fact that we're like a leaner team and like we, whatever, like all that like doesn't really matter. The client doesn't really care if you have a small team or a big team, or if you're based in their city or if you're not based in their city. Like the client just doesn't care. The main value that we provide for clients pretty much revolves around meeting their expectations. And those expectations are largely based around, can you get me more awareness? Can you get me more exposure? Can you help me close more deals? And we do that better than any of our competitors. I mean, there are some exceptions. I'm not saying we're the best in the world. Like, I think there are some agencies that maybe like, they have a truly global presence. Like they have offices in Japan and India and Australia and the United States and so on and so on. And like when they put together campaigns, they do global campaigns, and they also have like an advertising arm, and they're doing advertising campaigns alongside all their PR. No, we don't do that. Okay, so I'm not literally sitting here saying like we're the best in the world at everything. We're not. We also don't charge $100,000 a year, which is what some of those agencies might charge, right? So like we're an incredibly good value. And again, I don't want to compete on the value thing because it's hard because like, are we a better value than somebody who charges $20,000 a month? Yes, we are. But are we a better value than someone who charges $5,000 a month? I don't know. Like, maybe, probably. But like, I don't want to be competing on price alone. So like, I think the main value of our services really just comes down to the fact that we help clients. Probably, if I were to say like when they come in the door and they're like, what do they need and like what is our main value? It's like we help them generate awareness so that they can be seen and searched for and ultimately picked or bought, whatever. B, that their executive team, C-suite, management level are considered thought leaders, like that they have a presence online and that presence is substantial and they're respected and that they're getting all their smart ideas out there for people to read and see and hear. And then third, that when the deal is finally at the finish line and they're comparing such and such company versus my client, that my client wins because they have enough positive articles, reviews, recognition, case studies out there in the world, easy to access with a quick click of a button or with ChatGPT or whatever it is, whatever search tool they're using, that it all just kind of bubbles up and surfaces up. That's ultimately the main value for these services. And then when we get into product flow, what does your company do after a customer purchases a product or a service? Describe the process steps and the resources involved. So let's say somebody signs up, right? Like the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start a whole analysis on kind of where things are with the client. Like, what's been done? Are they starting from scratch or do we have something to work with? Oftentimes we will create Google Doc drives where everything is sort of stored by the client. Like, here's an example, right? Like we will have clients where we'll create all this stuff from scratch for each one, and dependent on whatever has been done, we'll either include it or we'll improve upon it. But oftentimes nothing has been done. So right from the get-go, we're kind of thinking about what does the roadmap look like? We're creating the next 30, 60, 90-day plan. We're thinking about what are competitors doing and what are they doing better than us? We'll probably look at the last year and see are they doing anything especially well? And maybe we can replicate that from a PR standpoint. whether it's thought leadership, speaking, announcements, whatever. If there is an announcement, we're immediately, and it's like coming up, and it's like in the next 2 months, like we're immediately kind of putting together plans to run towards that. What's the press release look like? What's the media list look like? How are we getting ready and prepared for that? And then there's all the other stuff, like let's make media lists for all of our go-to people that we can reach whenever we want. If we're doing media relations for them, who are the people locally that we can sort of set them up for coffees? If there are any conferences they're sponsoring, can we get the media list and try to set up meetings with the media there? Like, and on and on and on. There's just so much work that happens immediately within that 30, 60, 90 days of just like organizing, creating, running with the ball, and just going after and trying to get as many wins as possible. So yeah, resources involved. I mean, yeah, just a lot of it is just like creating resources because there is no resources. So a lot of it is like starting from scratch. Workflow. Describe the process of working with a client from the first contact to achieving results using any example. How are the services provided? What are the stages? Okay, I mean, we'll take something really simple, okay? Like, and this is very simplified because this is like, I just think it's pretty straightforward and it's probably easy to grasp, but there's many more like clients, customers, and case examples that are far more complicated than this. But if you take one client that we've had, which is DevZero, it was a developer tool company that reached out, and they reached out and they said, hey, we've got this big conference coming up in about a month or two, and we have a presence there, and we're launching this product, and we would like to get coverage of this product, but more than that, when we have our CEO there, we want meetings with the CEO with media. And so based on that, we said, okay, this is pretty short-term turnaround time, like 6 weeks away from the event itself. And we just got to work. We said, okay, the entire engagement was pretty short. It was like 3 months or something like that. The whole thing was just based around what can you do for this one particular event to maximize the impact. So, of course, we do things like let's put together a press release, let's pitch the media, the news, like under embargo. And I'm using a lot of terms that I know you probably don't understand if you don't know PR, but look it up. And I don't want to explain all this to you assuming you don't know, because then that's just like pretty condescending of me to assume you don't know. If you don't really know and you want to know, I'm happy to tell you these things, but I don't want to waste your time, and I don't want to assume you don't know. So I'm just going to assume you either know or you'll figure it out what this jargon means. But basically, like, we're pitching news for their big event, but also it was kind of like they were going to be a sponsor at the event. So we went ahead and asked like for the event organizers to provide us with a list of all the media that are going to be at this event. We got that list. We then sorted out who was a relevant media, like who might potentially cover this, who's like a relevant person for their product that would be like a good fit to cover it. We then reached out proactively, asking if they had any meetings set up. We'd love to get them in front of the CEO to sit down, to talk about the event, the news of the day, and also to talk about their product and kind of like give them a briefing on like what's new with DevZero and kind of like what's happening. And yeah, we did that for probably like 30 or 40 or 50 people and ended up with something like 10 meetings at the event, which was great. I mean, that was exactly what they wanted. They wanted to have a big splash. They had all these meetings. They got coverage out of it. They got articles written. And the CEO felt like it was a huge success because, of course, 10 meetings is a lot with media. So they're constantly at the event, just going from meeting to meeting and crushing it. So, yeah, in general, that's like a small, very, very small process of working with a client. But the truth is, it's so much more complex than that. Like, if you take into account there's announcements, I mean, I could literally give you like an hour download on like how services are provided and what are the stages. I don't think it, I mean, like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, if you want me to really do that, I will do that. But like, I also don't want to just talk your ear off and give you a bunch of stuff. You're like, I don't need that. So if you want me to tell you the process of working with a client and all the different things we do from every angle, I'll do that. But just let me know. So I'm gonna end it here because we're at 20 minutes for this video and we still have user flow and goals, and then we're done. So I'll just cut it here and start a new video, and then we'll be finished.